Martin Lindsay walked back to his Jaguar on Eastcheap and stopped cold. The body panels had warped like tinfoil. The chrome badge had melted into a silver puddle. He'd parked barely an hour in the shadow of London's newest tower, 20 Fenchurch Street, and now his car looked torched. At first, Lindsay assumed vandalism, but the damage was too precise. One side of the car had blistered while the other stayed cool, and the street itself was scorched. A shop owner's doormat had begun to smoke. A reporter would later crack an egg on the pavement and watch it sizzle. The culprit wasn't a prank or a defect. It was the building itself. Its curved glass facade flared outward as it rose, acting like a giant concave mirror. Sunlight hit that curved surface and bounced back down, concentrated into a beam that tracked across the street as the sun moved. Surface temperatures exceeded 90 degrees Celsius. A finished, occupied skyscraper had become a weapon of light, and nobody had seen it coming. Raphael Vignoli sketched a tower that flared outward as it climbed. 37 floors, 160 meters of glass and steel. The south face swept inward in a gentle bowl, a curve he read as elegance from his desk in New York. From the street below on certain September afternoons, that same curve became a weapon. Vignoli had seen this before. His Vardara hotel in Las Vegas bounced sunlight onto its pool deck, a hot spot, milder. He later acknowledged he'd known glare was possible. He didn't know it could be this fierce. Londoners nicknamed the building the Walkie-Talkie for its squat, flared silhouette. But that inward curve, so striking from the Thames, collected sunlight across its entire height and bent it downward. Not to a point, to something worse. The geometry was no sphere but a cylinder stretched wide, so the light compressed not to a dot but to a line, a blazing stripe that moved as the sun crossed the sky. Why did this shape turn a pleasant afternoon into a hazard? What physics turned a facade into a lens? Every mirror tells light where to go. A flat one sends it bouncing back at the same angle it arrived. But curve that glass inward, make it concave, and something strange happens. The light rays stop scattering. They start meeting. A shaving mirror works this way. Hold it close and your face fills it, sharp. Step back, and the glass gathers light from across its surface and squeezes it tight. Now imagine that mirror is 160 meters tall, facing south toward the sun. The walkie-talkie's curve was not a sphere but a cylinder, stretched wide along its height. So instead of focusing light to a point, it focused it to a line, a blazing stripe that slid along Eastcheap like a slow searchlight, tracking the sun from east to west. For perhaps 2 hours on clear September afternoons, that strip was the hottest place in London, 90 degrees more. Hot enough to warp metal, to scorch whatever it touched, and it moved. A car parked in shade at noon might sit in the beam by 1 o'clock. A doormat left in morning light could be smoking by afternoon. No warning, no fixed target, just a silent, shifting furnace drawn by the turning earth itself. And when that beam finally struck something solid, something real, something someone owned and needed, what happened then? Martin Lindsay came back to find his Jaguar weeping. He'd parked on Eastcheap for barely an hour. Now the body panels warped like soft wax. The wing mirror drooled off its mount. The hood badge pooled into something he couldn't name. A few doors down, a shopkeeper lifted his entrance mat and found rubber smoking, fibers blackened to ash where the beam had rested. A reporter from City AM set a frying pan on the pavement, cracked an egg into it, watched it sizzle and set. 90 degrees Celsius, some said higher. A strip of heat crept across the street as the sun tracked overhead, claiming whatever it touched. The building obeyed physics perfectly. Physics simply didn't care about Jaguars or doormats or the City of London's insurance premiums. This was no longer a curiosity. It was a public hazard, shifting, silent, hunting across the pavement without warning. And now the developers faced a reckoning. Land Securities and Canary Wharf Group couldn't lease offices in a skyscraper that cooked the street below. But the man who designed this glass curve had already watched a building of his do the same thing in a desert city on the other side of the world. So why hadn't he stopped it here? They called in engineers and physicists to kill the beam without flattening the silhouette. Raffaele Vignoli stepped forward. He'd seen this before at his Vdara hotel in Las Vegas, where a curved facade pooled sunlight into hotspots by the pool. But London surprised him. He hadn't expected this intensity, the way concave glass squeezed daylight into something almost industrial. The fix was brute force. They bolted horizontal aluminum fins across the south face, a brise soleil that shattered the smooth curve into dozens of smaller angles. No more single focusing mirror, just scattered reflections, harmless and ordinary. The sleek flank now wore a ribbed exoskeleton, visibly patched, functionally redeemed. Martin Lindsay got his Jaguar paid for. The shopkeeper got a new mat. But the building stood changed, its original vision compromised by physics it had accidentally obeyed. And that raises a quieter question. If a tower meant for spreadsheets could become a furnace without anyone predicting it, what else are we building that the equations haven't caught yet? The same physics powers industrial solar furnaces. Acres of tracking mirrors focus sunlight onto a single tower, melting steel with surgical precision. The Walkie-Talkie achieved this by accident. A vast concave glass facade, one stationary sun. Concentration ratio is just aperture divided by focal area. Simple geometry, brutal result. Design teams modeled glare inside offices, heat gain through windows, cooling loads and energy costs. Nobody simulated what that curved wall threw back outward. The software had no checkbox for accidental convergence. Raffaele Vignoli knew curved glass could reflect. He didn't know it could weaponize. The building became a case study overnight. Regulators in half a dozen cities demanded new reflection analysis for proposed towers. Engineers added external specular checks to their workflows. A beautiful object, obeying laws older than architecture, had humiliated human foresight. But the sun still rises, glass still curves, and somewhere a rendering shows a facade no one has traced for convergence yet. The fear lingered. It could happen again. Any concave mirror large enough, smooth enough, aimed south enough could harvest the sun like a machine built for it. The physics never cared about intent. A vast concave glass facade had caught parallel rays and squeezed them into a moving line hot enough to warp steel, to scorch stone, to fry an egg on London pavement. That Jaguar on Eastcheap became an unlikely teacher. Engineers now trace reflections before they pour foundations. They ask what a facade throws outward, not just what it admits inward. The lesson cost a melted wing mirror and a scorched doormat. Cheap tuition, considering Raffaele Vignoli died before he could watch the fix settle into the skyline. His building still stands, still catches light, still throws it back. Only now the beam breaks apart against aluminum fins, harmless, scattered, tamed. The sunshade does not apologize. It simply obeys the same law that caused the harm. A curve that concentrates can be interrupted. The knowledge endures. The next tower somewhere bends glass toward the sky. Someone will check. Someone must. The sun still rises. The glass still waits. The walkie-talkie didn't just become a cautionary tale. It became a data point that rewrote simulation checklists for every reflective high-rise after it. The beam that melted a Jaguar was gone, but the physics that produced it remained, waiting for another curved mirror aimed at a city street. Except now, architects know to look before the glass goes up. On Eastcheap, afternoon sun falls through aluminum fins and scatters into dappled shadow. A passerby checks their phone, a shop door opens and closes. Somewhere, a reporter's frying pan sits in a cupboard, its egg long eaten, its story still told. The city hums, the sunshade does not remember, it only works. But somewhere, someone designing something tall and bright will pause at their screen and trace a reflection arc they might once have missed. That pause is the legacy. That glance is the debt paid forward. The beam is tamed. The knowledge walks on.